culture and then using people to get food. The people who run these tourist locations actually give them food. You saw even that one monkey, you're like, oh, you have sunglasses, you want those? Here's a banana. And he's like, no, not good enough, right? So we got to give him a nutrient bar or whatever. So that's like an even higher level of food acquisition where they're trying to get the highest nutritional value, the least amount of work, and they figured out that if they steal stuff, they'll get food, right? So that shows their level of cognition, kind of how sneaky they are. These macaques have these temples. They're definitely kind of like monsters. They're kind of gangsters. They know that people will come to see them. They know that they want to get close to the monkeys, and then they will sneak up and sneak attack and steal whatever they can in order to do this. That's very different than other animals who don't live near humans, right? So food acquisition is very, very important, but it depends on where they are, what species they are, how specialized they are, what they can eat. And macaques, since they are found across the widest range of geographical area compared to all the other primates, they have specialized into these very specific niches where they've actually figured out they can use people to get food, which is a brilliant idea. So communication is also very, very important for primates. So I actually studied primate communication in my master's. Lots of fun. I studied tamarins. And communication is important for not only talking to one another or sharing information about food or determining dominance hierarchies. It's also important for alerting each other to predators. So one of the benefits of social group living, like we learned last class, is that there are more individuals to alert you to predators. Because think if you're a small monkey, but even if you're a larger monkey, there are still animals out there who can eat you. And normally you don't want to be eaten by a jaguar or a leopard or a snake or predators are. So by living in groups, they can actually share information about what is the danger and where it is. The alarm calls are actually specific to what type of animal is a threat at this time, and they can share information about themselves, their group, where the danger is, what the all in just very short blips of sound, which is very, very fascinating. They're able to do this with just a couple chirps, give entire sentences of what our language can do for this information. So these are some monkeys who are going to respond to a leopard.
All these monkeys have different alarm calls for different predators.
So in that video, there's a group of different monkeys who are living together, and they can actually cross species. Which is even better for predator avoidance. And you saw where they recognize the leopard, they call leopard, it's a leopard. And everyone in the group, actually all of the species that were involved, all responded to the leopard. Now I will say I tried to do similar tests in my master's with tamarins using I did not get the same responses David Attenborough got from these monkeys. My monkey, and they walked right over my snake model. And they're like, real. I was like, that's not helpful. These are monkeys. So different monkeys with different habituation, different uses in field research. You do have different responses to tests like this, but the bigger interesting point is that this communication is cross-species. It's specific to those predators, and working together to identify that there's a predator. And then he mentioned that they're actually not going to leave, right? You think, oh, there's a leopard, run away. You run away, you no longer have eyes on the leopard. So for every species that is a predator threat, they have different responses that include where they're going, to go in the trees, what they're going to do, how they're going to call, sometimes actually mob predators. They won't mob the leopard, but they would mob maybe like a large snake. I've seen my tamarins do that. On the tamarins I study, they actually will come together and attack the snake. The snake says, oh, I didn't sign up for this, and goes away. So the very, very important communication. And alarm calls are one of the most specialized and beneficial calls that they can use between each other and between species. Now they do have communication broadly for all the other information as well, but these alarm calls are of special interest to primatologists because it's cross-species communication, which is really, really interesting, fascinating way to explore the connectivity between different species in the ecosystem and dependencies, and then being able to speak across species is something that we would very much like to do with our primate counterparts as well. So as Dr. Seyfar said, he is one of the top primatologists in primate communication. It is also important for us to be looking at all these complex characteristics and behaviors. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we are also, phytoprimatology is looking at kind of ecology, behavior, life history to help learn more about people, right? So we do have who, are related to these other primates, and the idea of communication, social grouping, all of these complex organizations are important for us to learn more about ourselves as well. Some primatologists only study primates, but it's also important to remember that we can apply what we learn about primate species to humans. Maybe not directly, but primates are us, right? We are primates. So whatever we learn about vervet monkeys or tamarins or gorillas, we can also try to connect to our own lineage and our own species.
There's a long history of humans trying to get apes to talk to them. Conversation. Could an ape ever learn to use language the way humans do?
Good question.
Scientific efforts to talk to animals have often focused on the great apes, our closest, cleverest cousins. I grew up believing that apes could talk to humans using sign language. I remember this about a gorilla named Coco.
Who is that? It's me there. That's good.
Blew my mind.
And he is brilliant. He actually knows how to make fire, which is a little concerning. They did teach him how to make fire, but he can now make it by himself if you give him the right tools. Kanzi is located in Iowa at a ape cognition research center up there with several other bonobos. And most of them can use lexicograms, which is very exciting, though Kanzi is a superstar, and he does love blueberries. So they can communicate in different ways and varieties, but it's not necessarily the same language that we speak. So there are still debates about ape language, and of course any primate who isn't an ape, that's a whole different question, right? If people are debating if great apes can communicate at highly advanced levels, imagine the tamarins, that controversy. So communication can also be used to deceive one another. It has been seen that sometimes primates will give false alarm calls to optimize a foraging benefit, and they're just great. Let's see what these Capuchins are up to.
In forests, from Africa to South America, scientists have found monkeys whose calls refer to predators. But do they ever use sounds for things when they can't see them, when they're just thinking about them? The white-faced capuchins in Costa Rica live by streams full of danger. They're nervous, maybe imagining death lurking under every log or pile of leaves. They too have put sound.
And they can also use it to express them being very unhappy. So there have been studies where they actually they're giving two capuchins very similar food rewards for an activity, and then they change where one capuchin gets a not a so great food reward, and they essentially throw a fit, and will communicate that very loudly. And the other capuchins will actually sometimes stop accepting the food rewards because their counterpart is not getting an equal fair share. So we talk about how primates are very brilliant for their body size. Their brains are up to 2-3 times larger than they should be based on the normal mammal trends. And one of the really important features that we look for in high levels of cognition is self-recognition, right? So if you ever in front of your dog or cat, they don't actually recognize themselves. They think it's another dog to play with, or the cat may think it's someone they need to arch their back at. There are different levels of recognition in animals and across the mammal taxa, and there are actually some primates, most primates actually, we think do have self-recognition, but it's even higher in the upper taxonomy.
We take it for granted, but self-recognition is a fundamental building block of human society. We exist as individuals, each with our own unique features. Scientists believe self-recognition is essential for our survival. We can live in large groups because we recognize similar features to our own in others. We can tell friend from foe.
Dolphins and elephants have also passed this test, so they can recognize themselves in the mirror. But there are only a select number of species who can recognize themselves. And it shows a high level of cognition.
Meet the relatives.
Anyway, where I work in Costa Rica, we call them gangsters because they are sassy, as you saw. And that condition of knowing that it's not fair anymore, right? So like you mentioned, the first cucumber was totally fine. Oh yay, I get fancy water. I love cucumbers. And then she realized, wait a second, I'm doing the same exact thing, but they're getting grapes. This isn't fair. And then, of course, she's very cute whenever she has a fit about it. So being able to recognize that equity and the fairness shows us high levels of cognition. What's also really impressive is cooperative hunting. So chimpanzees do hunt other primates, and they're the only primate that hunts other primates. And they can also hunt, antelope. They can hunt small mammals. They can capture and hunt for different food items. So the ability to cooperate in this, though, is really important. It's actually one of the things that our professor, Dr. Jill Preet, studies. The chimpanzees at her site in Senegal do cooperative hunting, and this is a very detailed working together, right? So in order to hunt down something, think back like what you think of as cavemen, right? So think about what they would have to do to be able to hunt down a bison or hunt down some other large animal, right? They'd have to work together, have communication with one another, have coordinated movements, be able to do all these things together to have an outcome for the entire group. So it's also an indicator of strong social bonds. It's an indicator of a strong social group that's able to do this together. Family, there may be a couple scenes that are a little rough in here because it is for hunting of chimpanzees. Exactly what they're supposed to do. Like the presenter mentioned, this is a learned behavior, right? So one of the hallmarks of primates and social groups And their basic features is that there is social learning happening. Primates learn from each other, they learn from their parents, they learn from other individuals in their cohort, in their group, and it does take practice. It takes time for them to learn all these things. Related to cooperative hunting is also exported aggression. So this is where a group can actually go after other primate species. This is aggression that is focused, specialized, and placed onto another group of primates. This is most commonly seen in chimpanzees, but there are cases where there are territorial primates, and they will actually defend their primate territory by chasing out other individuals. Now, high levels of aggression are seen most commonly in the great apes, but you can still threaten someone, you can still push another group back out of your territory, even if you're a very small tamarin, for example. They do have altercations, but the most extreme examples are seen here, like in chimpanzees. So this one is slightly more concerning for a warning. So if you don't like aggression and those things, just be aware they are going to go after another group. But this is a natural behavior that is seen in wild troops of chimpanzees.
These calls announce the start of a raid into land controlled by their neighbors.
Both in the present and in the past. So, maintaining your borders by holding your borders and sort of sparking some fear into your neighbors. And of course, if you go back to our food gathering lecture, we're talking about how nutrient-rich animal protein is. So yes, they do sometimes eat other chimpanzees after these raids, and it's mostly, always, the males doing this. And one of the things that actually came out of the initial studies of these raids by chimpanzee males on neighboring groups was this idea that chimpanzees, and because of our ancestry, our linked ancestry with them, chimpanzees, bonobos, and humans have killer genes. We're predisposed to war genes, and that's why humans are so at each other all the time. It's why we have to have war, and that hypothesis is still being questioned, and has mostly been thrown out. But there's still research looking into that because we do see these behaviors in chimpanzees, and humans don't always get along very well either. And so it can be in some ways similar to instances like this. We don't normally eat our enemies. I don't know about you guys, but I don't normally do that. But those behaviors can be seen similar to humans. So yet again, looking at these complex behaviors, we're able to learn not only about the primates that we're looking at, but about humans and human lineage, which is very important for our own understanding of our species. Tool use, to kind of be a little lighter now, tool use is also really, really fun. There are different primate species that are able to use tools, and essentially it's any time that a primate is using an additional part of their environment, or they're using a rock, or they're using a stick, or they're using any sort of object to be able to help them succeed in a behavior or in an action. So it can be specialized, which you'll see in a couple of videos, or like these guys, these little tufted capuchins, and they just pick up a rock, but they're able to pinpointedly use this tool to benefit themselves for foraging. So one of the things that is very similar across all these behaviors is that food is still very important and on the mind for lots and lots of these behaviors. Food, predation, social grouping, all those very important characteristics we talked about earlier about primates in general.
Have you ever had a hard time opening?
Shenanigans and nuts, and they're kind of able to crack them open to be able to access that high nutrient food resource. Those capuchins have now actually officially moved into the Stone Age. So that's very exciting. That was recent after that video. So there is, an evolution of culture happening and of knowledge and learning cognition with primates. One important thing to have in the back of your mind is that whenever we're looking at evolutionary taxonomy, a lot of times we think of, like moving forward in evolution, moving forward, upward, it's like the final point, which is normally in most, biologies and things, places humans, because we are, highly cognitive, highly social, advanced cognitive and critical thinking, all these things. But just because capuchins are not as cognitive ability as us, or because they don't have the same social structure as we do, all of the animals and species in the world are still evolving, even if it's very minute, right? So we think about a lot of times like crocodiles or dinosaurs, and they haven't changed for millions of years. That's true in the sense that their general body plan, their general behavior, their specializations haven't changed because they've been working. But there's still slight evolutionary changes happening. So this also occurs with culture. So just because capuchins are not great apes, they're not people, doesn't mean that they're not still moving forward in the sense of their evolution and in culture. So kind of an interesting thing for you guys to think about. A lot of times we think like, oh, the final point, like the end goal is stopped. Everything is still evolving, still gaining adaptations, still responding to the environment.
What allegedly separates?
So similar to what we just watched, where chimpanzees are able to use a wide variety of tools for different reasons and purposes in their environment. This is a video about chimpanzees in Senegal at a site called Bangoli. And this is where our professor does her research. So she founded this research station. And this research is still happening today. If you are interested in this, you should definitely talk to us or talk to Dr. Breitz. There are opportunities to be involved in this broader scope of research.
Just to habituate the chimps to her presence. For several weeks, we joined Jill as she followed the chimps on foot from well before dawn until well after dark. We averaged 10 to 15 miles a day over rough terrain and in temperatures that often exceeded 100 degrees. We got to know the chimps through Jill's eyes. And saw moments both playful and intimate. Nickel is a first-time mother with a 2-month-old daughter, Teva. Young Mike loves to be with the new baby. Jill spends most days observing the chimps, and they spend most of their time on the move, looking for food. Much of their diet is leaves and fruit, but one day we saw something rare. An older male, Sibiru, caught a young vervet monkey and ate it. And last summer, Jill witnessed something that no one had ever seen before. She saw a female chimp make and use a weapon to kill a bush baby.
This is actually a spear that an adult female named
Collection of these spheres. So you mentioned culture and tool use can also be learned. A lot of these behaviors are learned. And now a majority of the chimpanzees at this site do use tools. Females more successful than males in their hunting, and they primarily use it to hunt for bush babies. So remember back to our bush babies are small little step strands, and they hide in the little burrows and holes of trees. And the chimpanzees want to consume animal protein for that high nutritional value, and they'll actually make these tools out of sticks. Highly specialized. It takes several years for them to master the art of creating a good spear and then being able to actually use it, moving with it. And there's also been cases of orangutans using spears to fish. There are some other cases where different animals will use different materials to hunt for things. in my own field research, I've actually seen a capuchin use a rock to kill a bat, and then he ate the bat. So these animals are able to use their environment, create tools that they're using to hunt, to benefit their foraging output. And remember that animal protein is high on the list. So tool use to be able to aid in that is very beneficial. Now this is our last video. We're going to start it. We may not have enough time to actually finish it out, but this is a kind of overall broadly like, do they have culture? Is this a thing? Because remember, a lot of times people think that only humans have culture, but now primatology is discovering that lots and lots of primates do have culture, particularly those closely related to us, definitely have some form of culture. This is what we call protoculture. So it's not the same degree as humans, but it is still culture. So all these links will be posted. They are already posted on Canvas. If you want to go back and watch these are all fair game for the next exam. So please go back and watch these again. If you have any questions, you have office hours, email us. It'll be good. We're going to watch our final one, and then I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to put your cards in the box. We're still doing COVID tracing, but we're going to watch this one and then finish up.